The bell rang through government secondary school, Mushin, its sound dull and tired like the building itself. Paint peeled from the walls, desks groaned under weight, and the blackboard was cracked down the middle. Yet in the back row sat Sadiq Ajayi, solving equations faster than the teacher could write them. Hunger twisted his stomach, but numbers gave him relief. When classes ended, Sadiq didn't join friends heading home. He packed his books quickly and slipped into the noisy streets. By evening, he would be pushing a wheelbarrow at Mile 12 Market, loading bags of rice for traders. Each naira mattered. At home, his mother waited with hope and worry in equal measure. The market smelled of sweat, pepper, and diesel fumes. Sadiq wiped his forehead as another trader called his name. His thin arms ached, but he smiled anyway. He had learned early that kindness brought repeat customers and sometimes extra coins. As night fell, he counted his earnings under a flickering streetlight. It wasn't much, but it would buy Gary and help pay his sister's school levies. As he walked home barefoot, he wondered if brilliance meant anything in a world that rewarded survival more than intelligence. In class, teachers praised Sadiq, but offered little else. "You are very intelligent," they said, then moved on. Intelligence didn't pay exam fees. Still, he studied relentlessly, borrowing textbooks and reading under candlelight. One afternoon, a new notice appeared on the board. Inter-School Academic Challenge, state level. Sadiq read it twice, his heart pounding. Winners would receive scholarships and cash prizes. For the first time, hope felt tangible. During practice sessions, Sadiq noticed Zainab Bello, a transfer student who always sat by the window. She was calm, sharp, and asked questions no one else dared. When they were paired for group study, something shifted inside him. Their conversations moved from formulas to dreams. Zainab wanted to become a doctor. She listened when Sadiq spoke about poverty without pity. For the first time, he felt seen, not as a poor boy, but as a mind worth knowing. At home, reality remained harsh. His mother's health worsened, and his younger brother talked of dropping out to work. Sadiq felt crushed by responsibility. Dreams suddenly felt selfish. That night, he almost tore up his competition form, but his mother held his hand and said softly, "Your success will save all of us." Her faith steadied him more than food ever could. Preparation was brutal. The school lacked materials, so Sadiq improvised. Zainab shared notes and challenged his thinking. They stayed after school, laughing quietly, pushing each other harder. Rumors spread. Some classmates mocked him, others envied him, but Sadiq focused. For the first time, his struggle felt like a path, not a trap. After a while, something tragic happened. Sadiq's mom. The coughing stopped suddenly. At first, Sadiq thought it was a blessing. He lay awake on his mat, listening to the rain hit the zinc roof, waiting for the familiar sound that had haunted his nights for months. When it didn't come, fear rose quietly in his chest. He called her name. No answer. By the time he touched her hand, it was already cold. The house felt too big after that. His younger brother cried until his voice broke. Neighbors came with whispers and prayers, but nothing filled the space she left behind. By morning, Sadiq was no longer a student trying to survive. He was a parent without preparation. The burial was quick. Too quick. There was no money for ceremony, no coffin worth remembering. Sadiq stood beside the shallow grave, holding his brother's hand, staring as earth covered the woman who had believed in him more than anyone else ever had. He did not cry. Not then. That night, hunger returned with cruelty. There was nothing left in the house except silence and responsibility. Morning came like punishment. Sadiq woke up early, cooked watery Gary, and sent his brother to school with a lie. Everything will be fine. After that, he sat alone and felt the full weight of the future press against his chest. There was no one to save them now, so he opened his books. Sadiq read like a man running from fire. He studied before school, after school, and deep into the night. His eyes burned, his head ached, sometimes words blurred, but he pushed through them anyway. Failure was no longer embarrassment. It was starvation. At mile 12, traders noticed his silence. At school, teachers noticed his hollow eyes. Zainab noticed everything. Zainab found him one afternoon sitting alone, staring at a textbook without turning the page. Without speaking, she pressed folded money into his palm. "For food," she said softly. Sadiq tried to refuse. Pride rose first, then hunger crushed it. Zainab bowed her head and prayed quietly beside him. She asked for strength, not miracles. That night, Sadiq and his brother ate properly for the first time since the burial. Grief didn't come all at once. It waited. Sometimes it struck while he was solving equations, sometimes while watching his brother sleep. He learned to swallow it quickly. There was no time to break. Zainab became his anchor, not with romance, but presence. One night, Sadiq stood alone outside, staring at the sky. "I won't fail," he whispered. "Not you, not him, not myself." The promise hurt, but it held him upright. The money finished. Hunger returned. Sadiq skipped meals again. His body weakened, but his mind sharpened. Teachers began to worry. One offered him an old textbook. Another stayed after class to explain a concept twice. Small kindnesses mattered now. By the third week after the burial, studying stopped feeling like effort and started feeling like instinct. Sadiq woke before dawn, his body aching from sleep on the bare floor, his eyes burning from too little rest. He washed his face with cold water, whispered a short prayer, and opened his books before the sun rose. There was no timetable anymore, only urgency. He studied while cooking for his brother, reciting formulas under his breath as he stirred thin soup. He read while walking to school, pages folded and creased from constant handling. Even at mile 12 market, between loading bags of rice, equations played in his head like a song he couldn't silence. Education was no longer about excellence. It was about staying alive. His body began to rebel. During a lesson one afternoon, the classroom spun suddenly. Chalk dust blurred, and the teacher's voice faded. Sadiq gripped the edge of the desk until the dizziness passed. Hunger had become normal, but now it demanded attention. His trousers hung loose. His cheeks hollowed further. Zainab noticed first. She didn't ask questions. At break time, she slipped food into his bag and told him to eat later, away from prying eyes. That evening, she prayed with him again, not for success, but for strength. Sadiq felt ashamed of his weakness, but grateful beyond words. The mock examination arrived like judgment. Sadiq walked in confident, armed with weeks of sacrifice. When the scripts were returned, his heart dropped. Red marks bled across the pages. He hadn't failed completely, but it wasn't enough. Not for scholarships, not for survival. He stayed behind after school, sitting alone in the empty classroom, staring at the paper until the sun dipped low. For the first time since his mother's death, tears came. Quiet ones, controlled ones. Tears for fear, not loss. That night, his younger brother asked if everything would be okay. Sadiq answered yes, without knowing if it was true. He rewrote every failed question, not once, but 3 times. He hunted for understanding, not shortcuts. Teachers began to notice the intensity in him, the way he asked questions without embarrassment, the way he stayed behind long after lessons ended. Zainab challenged him too. She argued with his answers, forced him to explain his reasoning. Sometimes they disagreed. Sometimes they laughed in exhaustion. What they shared wasn't romance. It was resistance against a world that expected them to fold. Slowly, confidence returned, not loud, but solid. The night before the competition, sleep refused to come. Rain fell steadily, tapping the zinc roof like impatient fingers. Sadiq sat beside his brother, watching his chest rise and fall. He thought of his mother, her voice, her faith, her final silence. He thought of hunger, of work, of Zainab's quiet prayers. He opened his notebook one last time, then closed it gently. For the first time, he felt ready, not because he knew everything, but because he had nothing left to give. The competition hall was larger than anything Sadiq had known. Students from elite schools filled the room, their uniforms crisp, their confidence loud. For a moment, doubt crept in. Then Sadiq remembered the grave, the hunger, the prayers whispered in empty classrooms. He took his seat, straightened his shoulders, and picked up his pen. When the questions came, he didn't panic. He worked steadily, methodically, writing with the calm of someone who had already faced loss. Time moved differently now, not as an enemy, but as a companion. When the final bell rang, Sadiq didn't rush out. He sat still for a moment, breathing. Whatever happened next, he had given everything,